I don't quite know how to talk about this. Isaac Asimov's Foundation. I'll tell you how I found it. I asked Google Gemini to recommend 75 non-fiction works while I was studying violence and coming up with the robot hypothesis and writing my first book. And one of them it mentioned was the Foundation series. So I thought, okay, I went and bought this box set. It's a nice set on Amazon. It was like $30 or something. And I read it, and it reads fairly quickly, and I couldn't stand it. I couldn't stand it. I literally read this out of obligation because I feel like it's referenced so much. They just came out with an Apple TV show about Foundation, and I thought it was so boring, and I'm going to explain why. But first I'll summarize the three books in Foundation. Now this only has the first three books of the Foundation series. Later on he wrote 4 more, including some prequels. But these three seem fairly, definitely feel like that was all he wanted to write. Because the third book really kind of peters out. So the first book is all about the Foundation. So this is in the distant future. There's a planet called Foundation that sort of houses all of the latest scientific discoveries. They have nuclear energy and all this, and there's sort of this like utopian kind of place where science reigns, right? And it's peaceful, and they only conquer by trade or whatever it is, right? And there's this man, Harry Seldon. Harry Seldon came up with this thing called, what is it called? It's called psychohistory. Psychohistory is this like math equation that can predict what people are going to do for the next however many thousands of years, and he predicts the fall of the Galactic Empire. Now, this is all sort of predicated on Gibbon's Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire. I haven't read this yet, but I kind of understand the gist of it. And Gibbon kind of blames Christianity to some extent for the fall of the Roman Empire. And so a lot of what Asimov is writing here is sort of like echoes of Gibbon's Fall of the Roman Empire, right? And so long story short, Seldon comes up with this psychohistory that's going to sort of reveal itself in intervals over the course of the next however many hundreds of years, and try and reduce the amount of time of decline so that we don't descend into barbarism for 30,000 years. Instead, it's only like 1,000 years or something like that. Anyway, the whole idea is that Harry Seldon came up with a science of sociology, right, which is the social sciences. He's sort of turned human behavior into a math equation. Okay. Sorry. I'm sorry. Okay. So the whole idea is, like, to me, ridiculous, but maybe some people find this that this is possible, right? And then, interestingly, in book 2, there's a little bit of a curveball. You get this guy called the Mule, and he sort of like disrupts the Seldon plan. It's something that he couldn't anticipate. Okay, interesting, great. And then in book 3, it says, well, no, actually, there's this other foundation that's located in a very similar location, and they also anticipated that, and they're like mentally evolved so that they can control people's minds, and they sort of planned that whole thing. Anyway, I'm really butchering the story, but I don't care. And here's why I don't care. First of all, I don't know why this is a classic. Maybe somebody can help me. Every scene, every chapter is a meeting. It's like, was Asimov just like in meetings all day in his life, and that's where he was inspired by everything? Because everything is people sitting around in a room talking about something. Every now and then there will be a paragraph of action that's like an entire war in 2 paragraphs. An entire war. Look, compare that to something like, Cixin Liu's Dark Forest. This has one of the greatest sci-fi action scenes ever written. I haven't read a whole lot of sci-fi, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say that when the bullet starts passing through the spaceships, that is one of the greatest things ever written. It's fantastic. It's energetic. It's ballsy. It's cool. This stuff, not ballsy, not cool. People sitting around talking about things all day. That was Asimov's world, I think. So that's one of my major, issues with this. And, we might give it a pass. This was written in, 1953 or so originally. It's almost 70 years old. It's over 70 years old. And, cinema was still kind of new at the time. Maybe Asimov didn't like cinema. Maybe he liked theater. Maybe he liked Shakespeare. And then if you're, in the theatrical world, all of your scenes in theater sort of take place in one location. And there's an argument, perhaps, that fiction, before the advent of cinema, was much more scenic, and there were fewer characters, fewer locations, smaller locations. There wasn't action and dialogue happening across a span of time and space, right? It didn't really happen. And so maybe he's just a product of that time. But that to me means this just didn't age well. This is sort of written for theater. And I don't know how they made a show out of it. I don't know if I'm going to watch it. Let me know if it's any good. Second thing is, like, sometimes the writing in the Foundation series is so bad, and I'm going to read you some of the writing in this is just unbelievable. I'm gonna unhook this thing. All right, here, listen to this. So, all right, here's one. All right, let's see. He's talking about Inber. He's in his garden, and somebody comes to see him, and he's annoyed. It is the precise question and the precise wording thereof that has been put to the atmosphere on such occasions by an incredible variety of men since humanity was invented. It is not recorded that it has ever been asked for any purpose other than dignified effect. What? Okay, now, here's another one. When the 27 independent trading worlds united only by their distrust of the mother planet of the Foundation, concert an assembly among themselves. Okay, so far so good. And each is big with a pride grown of its smallness, hardened by its own insularity, and embittered by eternal danger. Okay, there are preliminary negotiations to be overcome of a pettiness sufficiently staggering to heart-sicken the most persevering. Like, don't. That is, and then he does it again. Like in the same chapter, it says, Randu stared at him over a yet uncleared breakfast table with an astonishment sufficiently open and strenuous to cause him to drop his pipe. This feels like somebody is being paid to write per word. That's what this feels like. In fact, the entire third book, Second Foundation, there's so much writing. An entire chapter could be condensed into a paragraph in this book. Seriously, like, this feels like, first book feels kind of dense. It's okay. Second book, it's all right too. Third book could be one chapter. So I feel like he was being pressured by his publicist to just write more books, and it's just egregious. There's another issue, and I'm going to spoil something. If you don't want to be spoiled, then turn this off. But at the end of Second Foundation and Empire, at the end of this, there's this woman, Baita, and she's been helping this clown. This clown escaped from the mule, who is this evil kind of emperor. Well, turns out that the mule is actually, the clown is actually the mule. He's the bad guy, and so what happens is that there's this old man. He's an old scientist. You grow to love him. His name is Ebling Miss. He's kind of like an Einstein type of character. And he's about to tell the clown, not knowing that the clown is this bad guy. He's telling the clown possibly where the location of the Second Foundation is. It's this big MacGuffin. That's what the entire third book is about. And she kills him. She murders a guy, and she's a good guy? Anyway, I hate that stuff. I don't care if that's what's necessary to the plot. You don't have a main character murder somebody. I don't understand that. I know that this is like something that people accept nowadays. It's kind of like that Star Wars movie where the beginning, what was it? Rogue One, in the beginning when that guy murders somebody, and like nothing is said about it later, and people go, oh, it's because he's a gray character. It's like, yeah, he's a murderer. Very opinionated, obviously, about this. So the last thing, again, my huge issue with this series is this idea that human behavior, it's this MacGuffin, right? Sort of the real MacGuffin. It's not so much the second foundation location, but it's more the discovery of a science of human behavior and the codifying of that behavior into some kind of an equation, like it's some kind of Newtonian physics equation or something. And he writes like that. He writes as if they've like put this equation out on a board and it's like, here's how people are gonna da 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 da, right? Which like has never happened. That's something that Asimov might have wanted to happen, and maybe there were, a lot of social planners around him at the time who were like really interested in that stuff and trying to figure out like the most optimal way to plan society, right? And it's just like, I'm very like allergic to that stuff, because like when people talk like that, they sort of assume that they know how people are going to act without really considering, personal agency. And it's really annoying. And of course, it's all based on, it's only a predictive model in terms of probability, which is kind of like quantum physics. So again, still, what they're trying to do is equate human behavior with quantum physics. As if you could even have a percentage chance of understanding what people are going to do en masse. If that were true, then the betting markets would be all over the place with human behavior, and they tend not to be very correct about like general flows of human behavior. They tend to kind of have like two opinions about where people are going to go, and it's pretty close about their results. So, at any rate, there's this interesting book. Where is it? It's Social Sciences as Sorcery. This is a really fun book. Stanislav Andreevsky. He's a really curmudgeon-y dude. I don't agree with him about his views on violence, but I do agree with him in terms of like what he thinks of the social sciences, right? And the social sciences are really fueled by a whole bunch of these kind of like probability models and whatnot, and like so much of it is just nonsense. And it has been nonsense for the past 60 years. Social sciences have tried very hard to plan society, to reduce aggression, reduce violence. Has that really worked? I don't quite know if that's true. I don't think that people really perceive that the cities are any safer than they used to be. Maybe homicides are down, but perhaps paranoia is up. So, if the social sciences also wanted to reduce violence, you would think they'd want to reduce paranoia too. And they haven't done a very good job of that. And so all this is to say, whatever one thinks about how social sciences have done, it seemed as though Asimov really liked this idea that humans could conform to equations the way that particles do. I'm reading one of his other books right now. To my kids, and that book is like the elementary building blocks of the universe or something. Every chapter is about an element, and that's also terribly written. It seems like he wrote that for kids, and it's terribly written. It's incredibly boring. My kids literally ask me to read it to them so that they can go to sleep. So if that tells you anything about him, like what else is there to say? I'm not really interested in reading anything else that Asimov wrote. I know he's famous for iRobot. iRobot supposedly is he proposing that like robots should have human rights? Are we really thinking that that's a good idea right now? And so anyway, I don't recommend it, not even as a museum piece. I don't know how this was made into a series. It's a bunch of meetings, and psychohistory is nonsense. So